How's it going, guys? And I'm here to talk about something that I haven't talked about in about 2 years almost exactly, and that's Ruthless Aggression, which is now on Peacock. It was on the WWE Network back in 2019. I talked about this show. They did 5 episodes in all, and for some reason, it took them ages to get this thing out. Even though they had extensive downtime during the pandemic in 2020. That's when we first heard rumblings about it. Then they also had a trailer at WrestleMania, which keep in mind that was back in fucking April. And it took them that long to give us season 2 of Ruthless Aggression, which we're back, or they're calling it Ruthless Aggression 2, Season 2, however you want to refer to it as. So I didn't even realize that this show had a second season. I actually just checked a few days ago about this to see what if it was randomly going to pop up because the rumblings started happening again recently. Because I was looking forward to this one. I don't really care about a lot of the shows that they show, back on the network and on Peacock. There's nothing really that tickles my fancy most of the time. It's a lot of fluff shows, and it seems like they've gotten away from a lot of the original programming they had on the network. Like when they first started the network, they had like ideas for all these like reality shows and things and Legends House, and there was some pretty entertaining stuff. And then somewhere along the way, they just kind of fell back on just doing documentaries and like. But this is the one because besides the Attitude Era, Ruthless Aggression is like one of my favorite eras. It also lasted for a long time. It's also debatable, like how long it lasted, or was there anything between this and the PG era? Because WWE doesn't even officially call it the PG era, so when did it exactly end? Who knows? But anyway, so the first episode here is Hollywood Rock, and it talks about The Rock's heel turn. And this was like a great time for The Rock, in my opinion. This was like the first time we got to see The Rock as a heel. For a very long time, since early '99, we have not seen The Rock show any shred of being a heel. So it had been like a good 4 years. So it was time for The Rock to become a heel. So this covers basically from you see from Rock and Hogan at WrestleMania 18, and you saw like how the crowd was mostly behind Hogan. They didn't really talk about though that there was actually quite a few people cheering for The Rock during that match. At certain points, it was like a little bit of 50-50, but somewhere along the way, people really got behind Hogan, and that's still to this day one of my favorite matches of all time. Definitely in my top 10 without a doubt. I mean, you want to talk about atmosphere, everything, and it's a good match. It flows very well, and it's just it's great, the commentary. I mean, you have JR and the King on commentary. You have two of the greatest wrestlers of all time, an enormous, loud crowd, a great storyline, and great build up to this match. I mean, fucking Hogan just driving a tractor trailer into an ambulance which The Rock was trapped in. That, I mean, can you even imagine them doing build up like that today? No, you can't, because it doesn't happen. So they kind of talk about how The Rock at SummerSlam, like the crowd kind of, had enough of The Rock leaving for Hollywood. And they talk extensively about him going to Hollywood and showing him on the red carpet, and talked about all these movies. I like that they talked about The Rundown, which that was actually a really good movie. I really enjoyed that one when it came out. I remember I was very excited to actually see that too. Something different from the Mummy franchise that The Rock was going to be in, and I remember it ended up being a pretty good movie. Um, and then we move on to 2003, but before we even get there, they showed this piece of footage I never saw before, where The Rock is at the end of SummerSlam. Brock has just beaten him at SummerSlam 2002 to capture the undisputed title. And we see The Rock like get on the mic and he says, he's about to say finally The Rock, and he's saying it like very begrudgingly. Like he's getting angrier and angrier as he proceeds through his lines, and then he says it doesn't matter where the rocks come back to. I never heard that before, and I don't know why they had been sitting on that footage for so long, unless it was on some sort of DVD or something like that. It definitely wasn't on the SummerSlam DVD, I could tell you that much. But yeah, I never saw that piece of footage. I mean, if it had been somewhere previously, let me know in the comments below. They were talking about it like, like that had been like common knowledge. I'm like, I never saw that. And they even talked about when it came off the air. But then again, I mean, we saw, if you watch some classic Raws, we see that there was a lot of stuff that they did for the crowd after. But it was usually like some kind of like unrelated stuff, kind of sometimes breaking kayfabe and things like that. And this was kind of like the most off the air, going along with the current storyline, that I think I've ever seen. So that was a pleasure to really see that. Then they show just, The Rock, when he returned, and we see from like No Way Out, 2003, like onward, and The Rock was doing the first ever Rock concert, his little feud he had with the Hurricane, that stuff. I mean, just everything there. Like, The Rock was such an expert heel, and he did everything like very different than how he did it when he was like in the nation and in the corporation, which I always appreciated. It showed like he was just a totally different Rock. Hollywood Rock, as the title of the episode refers to him as. He did such a great job. Also, like, there's a part where they talk about his theme music that he came back to. And, we've got Bruce Pritchard saying, like, if he came back with a theme that, was the same thing that he had when he left, it wouldn't have the same effect because people would have popped from, all these ideas. And I listen to like Bruce Pritchard and how he talks now and everything. It's like, can I ask a question? Like, he's talking about this and he's talking about Pavlovian responses and all that. So let me get this straight. So when someone turns heel, they don't change their music. Like Sami Zayn, or Kevin Owens or something like that. It's always like the same theme music. So with that in mind, like, Bruce Pritchard is there now, and we saw like his official title. He's like the executive producer, director, whatever that is. So whatever. He's like a right-hand man for Vince. So why, with all this vast wrestling knowledge and him saying that, and this is like a small detail, how is he not applying that to the current situation that we're seeing on TV? Why are we sitting around like, we understand what we did back then, and this is the way it should have been done, and we're so knowledgeable, and look at our great character and all that. And it's like, to me, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, but it also gets me angry at the same time, because I'm like, you fucking idiots. You see what greatness is. And I get it, that's The Rock, but these little details, like you're saying, like changing his music so the crowd sees him in a different light. You know this, but you don't do this. And it's just like, so it's just pure laziness, basically, is what they're saying, or they don't feel like doing it that way anymore, even though they're explicitly saying it works. You don't see them saying any excuses for why that wouldn't work today. Also, I thought it was interesting. We have Johnny Gargano here, and thank God they got rid of him like halfway through this documentary. And by the way, it wasn't Michael Rappaport doing the narration this time around. It was Pat McAfee. And Rappaport, I'm not a big fan of that guy, like, as a person, but he did a good job with the narration. But McAfee is great too. And so anyway, Gargano is like who the fuck cares what this guy has to say about The Rock? Like, we're listening to people, we see, Gregory Helms in there, we see Goldberg later on, Stone Cold talk about it when their time comes. It's like Johnny Gargano talking about The Rock. I mean, what? I mean, this is like if you had like like an unknown, like an extra in a movie talking about Jack Nicholson or something like that, or talking about like Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio. It would be like, who cares what those people think? That, you know, you're so far below that your opinion on them doesn't even matter because they're so much better than you. And why didn't they say that Jim Johnston was the one who composed that theme, who made that theme, that did the epic guitar work in that heel rock theme? Huh? Like, oh, because he doesn't work there anymore? Like, first of all, yeah, that is one of the greatest theme songs ever composed, but it was Jim Johnston, just like about, I would say 99.9% of all the great theme music that WWE has was all composed by Jim Johnston, sometimes performed by, you know, other bands and singers, but, you know, he's the one who wrote the music, who said the music should be this way, and this is the music that this character should come out to. So I don't understand why they passed up on the opportunity to name drop Jim Johnston or contact Jim Johnston to talk about that theme if they're going to explicitly put that to the side. Instead, you're going to hear everyone else talk about it. And Johnny Gargano's opinion on the music. Like, okay, like, who cares what he thinks about it? All right, so we move on. We talk about the Stone Cold match at WrestleMania 19. And then we talk about Goldberg coming back. And it's interesting that they skipped over, like, I thought a very pivotal piece of information is that during the Goldberg match, people started to boo Goldberg and they really started to endear The Rock again. They kind of just skipped over that and went right to WrestleMania 20. And, you know, I thought that they should have kind of mentioned the reason, you know, like, okay, people they thought that he was gone for good that time between the Goldberg match and WrestleMania 20, but that was not the case. But yeah, they should have talked about that a little bit at length. Like, even the returning Goldberg, like, couldn't even, you know, get the response he was looking for because The Rock was about to leave and, you know, people were going to miss him. But overall, I enjoyed it. You know, whatever, you know, my gripes may be, I mean, it's an enjoyable documentary. It's very well edited, just like all the other episodes. You know, you could talk about the politics and Bruce Pritchard and, you know, how this guy, you know, the thing is, Bruce Pritchard, I got to tell you, so I really don't like this guy. He is so full of hot air. He acts like he knows it all, and he might know certain things, but like, bro, you're there. You're doing this right now. You're helping Vince with the show. How closely you are, but you're there with the creative. You're a producer, whatever it may be, what your exact role is. If you're so knowledgeable, then get in there, get in those creative meetings, and tell them how it's done. But obviously, he doesn't know what to do, or he's scared of upsetting Vince. I mean, because I don't know, Vince is too busy looking for his fucking Survivor Series egg or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but yeah, anyway, it was a good documentary episode of it anyway, and I'm looking forward to watching the other episodes that have been released so far. And, you know, it was great going down memory lane and revisiting this, like, epic, like, it didn't really last that long when you kind of think about it, but The Rock's second heel run was really enjoyable. And he did some of his finest work there. So, yeah, guys, I think you should all check it out. Definite recommendation. I'll be coming back to do a review of episode 2 as well. So stay tuned for that. And thanks again for watching, guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. And I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.